3 days no one claimed her until a little girl pointed. "That's her. Can you be my mama?" Red Mesa Colony sat under a wide alien sky the color of old denim. 2 moons hung like pale coins, and the wind carried fine red dust that crept into boots, pockets, and dreams. The town was small, built from steel sheets, sun-baked wood, and whatever the first settlers could salvage from cargo crates. People here did not complain much. They worked, they endured, and they watched strangers carefully. Marshal Cade Rylan rode in at sundown on a sandrunner, part horse, part machine, built for long miles across bad land. The sandrunner's hooves clicked softly where metal met stone. Cade's hat brim shaded his eyes, but his gaze stayed sharp. In this place, a person survived by noticing things early. Behind him, walking with slow, careful steps, came the stranger. She wore a torn travel coat that had once been gray. Dust had turned it the same red as the ground. Her boots were mismatched. Her hair was dark and tangled, cut short like it had been hacked away in a hurry. She kept one hand close to her chest, fingers curled around a small silver pendant that did not match anything else she owned. Cade had found her that morning, 3 days out from town, near a dry ravine that locals called Coyote Cut. She had been sitting in the shade of a cracked boulder as if she had simply stopped and forgot to start again. No supplies, no transport, no weapon. No trail behind her that made sense. When Cade spoke to her, she had looked up with eyes that were clear but empty of any name or story. She had understood words. She had even answered questions. But every time he asked who she was or where she came from, her forehead tightened like she was pushing against a locked door in her mind. "I don't know," she had said, voice rough with thirst. "I don't remember." Cade had offered water. She drank slowly, like she was afraid it might vanish if she moved too fast. Now the town's lanterns glowed one by one, and the few people still out on the street paused to stare. A stranger was news. A stranger with no claim papers and no family was trouble. Cade guided her toward the claim office, a squat building with a faded sign that read, Colony Registry and CLAIMS. Inside, the air smelled of ink, metal, and old coffee. A ceiling fan turned lazily, pushing warm air in circles. Clerk Madsen sat behind the counter, thin as a fence post and twice as stiff. He looked up, squinted at the woman, then at Cade. "Marshal," Madsen said, "what's this?" "Found her outside the line," Cade replied. "No papers, no beacon, no ship record." Madsen frowned as if Cade had tracked mud onto his clean floor. "We don't have room for mysteries." Cade leaned one elbow on the counter, calm but firm. "You got a holding room." Madsen's eyes slid to the woman again. "Name?" The woman hesitated. Her hand tightened around the pendant. The silver piece was shaped like a small star inside a circle, the lines clean and unfamiliar. It gave off a faint, steady glow, so faint it could have been a trick of the lantern light. "I don't know," she said again. Madsen let out a slow breath through his nose. "No name, no sponsor, no claim." Cade watched the woman's face. She did not look angry. She looked tired. There was a quiet dignity in her posture, like a person who had stood through storms and did not want to fall now. "She needs a temporary registry," Cade said. "Put her down as Mara for now." "Mara," Madsen repeated like the word tasted strange. Then he scribbled it on a form with a stylus. "Age," Mara blinked. I think 20-something." Madsen snorted. "That's not an age." Cade spoke before Mara could shrink further into herself. "Put adult. We'll correct it later." Madsen tapped the screen. "Origin world?" Mara swallowed. "I don't know." A silence settled heavy in the room. In the back, the holding room door creaked like it was listening. Madsen finally said, "There's procedure for this. 3 days. If nobody claims her, the colony can transfer her to the authority intake station. They'll figure out what she is." Mara's eyes flicked up at that. Intake station? It was not fear exactly. It was a quiet alarm, the kind that lived in a person's bones. Cade saw it and felt something tighten in his own chest. He had seen plenty of outlaws, drifters, and desperate folks. But this woman did not carry the usual signs. She didn't ask for money. She didn't beg. She didn't try to charm anyone. She looked like someone who had been dropped into the world by a careless hand. "That's 3 days," Cade said, steady. "She'll stay in holding till then. We'll keep it clean." Madsen slid the form into a tray. "Fine. But if trouble comes with her, it's on you, Marshal." Cade nodded once. "Understood." He led Myra to the holding room. It was small, with a cot, a sink, and a metal bench bolted to the wall. A thin window showed the main street outside. Cade placed a canteen and a wrapped meal on the bench. I'll check on you, he said. Myra looked at him like she wasn't used to kindness. Why are you helping me? Cade paused. In a rough place, people asked that question a lot. Sometimes it was sarcasm, sometimes it was a test. With her, it sounded honest. Because you were alone out there, he said, and because you didn't try to hurt anybody. Mara glanced down at the pendant, then up at Cade again. I don't think I want to hurt anyone. That's a good start, Cade replied. Then he closed the door gently, not like she was a criminal, but like she was a guest who needed quiet. Outside, the town kept breathing. Boots thudded on boards. A distant generator hummed. Somewhere, a child laughed, and the sound drifted across the street like a small, bright thing. That night, Cade sat in his office with a cup of coffee that had been reheated too many times. He read the report he had already written, then read it again. His eyes kept returning to one detail, the pendant. He had seen colony tags, he had seen family charms, he had seen outlaw tokens and mining company coins. That symbol did not match anything he knew. Near midnight, the wind changed. A faint whistle slipped through cracks in the walls. Cade stepped outside and looked up. Far above, the sky was clear, but a small point of light moved against the stars, slow and controlled. Not a meteor, not a local shuttle, something higher. He watched it until it faded, and he told himself he was imagining patterns. The next morning, news had spread. People came to the claim office not to help, but to look. They stood outside as if Mara were an odd animal in a cage. She's not from around here, one woman whispered. Maybe she's a thief, said a man in a dusty coat. Could be a plant, another muttered, eyes narrowed. Off-world authority trying to make sure we pay our taxes. Mara stayed inside the holding room, sitting on the cot with her hands folded in her lap. She did not cry. She did not shout. She listened, and her face stayed calm, but her eyes moved as if measuring the world through the glass. When Cade brought her breakfast, she surprised him by speaking first. The wind here is different, she said quietly. Cade raised an eyebrow. Different how? It's sharp, Mara answered, searching for words. Like it remembers stones. Cade didn't know what to say to that. Still, he understood the feeling. Red Mesa had a way of getting into people, scraping them down to what was real. By midday, a ranch hand named Tobin came into the office, hat in his hands, acting like he had no business being there. You the marshal? Tobin asked, though Cade's badge made it obvious. That's me. Tobin's gaze slid toward the holding room window. Folks say there's a woman in there. There is, Cade said. Tobin shifted, uncomfortable. My boss says if she's trouble, he don't want it near his cattle. Cade's voice stayed even. Then your boss can keep his fences tight. Tobin flushed. Ain't like that. Just times are hard. No one can afford problems. Cade looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Times are always hard here. That's why we try to be decent when we can. Tobin left with his ears red and his shoulders tense, like decency was a language he didn't speak well. That afternoon, a power flicker rolled through town. Lights blinked. The ceiling fan slowed, then started again. People cursed under their breath and blamed the old generator. Inside the holding room, Myra's pendant brightened for a heartbeat, just a little, like it was responding to something. Myra noticed. Her fingers tightened around it and her eyes unfocused. For a second, she saw something else. Metal walls, cold lights, a corridor stretching forward, boots running. Alarms that didn't sound like Red Mesa alarms. A voice in her ear, steady and urgent. Run, don't let them reset you. Myra jerked back to herself with a sharp inhale. Her heart raced, her palms were damp. She pressed her forehead against the cool metal wall and tried to breathe. Cade, standing outside the door, heard the sound and turned quickly. You all right? He called. Myra forced her voice to steady. Yes, just a headache. Cade watched her through the small window. He believed she had pain. He didn't believe that was all. He went back to the counter and leaned close to Madsen. Any missing person reports come in? Madsen didn't look up from his screen. None. Any ships logged in the last week that might be connected? Madsen sighed. Marshal, we get traders, drifters, and scrap haulers. Half of them don't file properly. If she's off-world, she could be from anywhere. Cade tapped the counter once. Keep your ears open. Madsen finally looked up, eyes tired. You're taking this personal. Cade's jaw tightened slightly. I'm taking it serious. By the end of the second day, no one had come to claim Mara, not a relative, not a friend, not even a crew mate looking for missing cargo. Just curious faces and suspicious whispers. On the morning of the third day, the sun rose pale and thin behind dust clouds. Cade arrived early, expecting another quiet shift. He was pouring coffee when the door burst open so hard it slapped the wall. A little girl ran inside. She was maybe 6 or 7. Her hair was tied in uneven braids. Her dress was patched at the knees. She carried a worn toy rover under one arm like it was a pet she refused to leave behind. Behind her, a man hurried in, tall and broad-shouldered, with a rancher's sun-browned face and worry in his eyes. He reached out like he meant to catch her. "Lily," he called, "slow down," but Lily didn't slow down. She stopped in the middle of the office, stared at the holding room window, and her whole face lit up like she had found something she'd been missing. Mara, hearing the commotion, stepped closer to the window. Lily's small hand rose, finger pointing straight at Mara as if the world had finally clicked into place. "That's her," Lily announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Then she turned to Cade, eyes wide and certain. "That's her. Can you be my mama?" The office went silent. Even the ceiling fan seemed to pause. Mara stood frozen, her hand still on the glowing pendant, staring at the child who looked at her like she belonged. And Cade Ryland felt the air change, like the wind outside had shifted direction again. Only this time, it felt like fate had stepped into the room wearing dusty boots. The claim office stayed quiet for a long moment after Lily's words. Even Clerk Madsen looked like someone had knocked the breath out of him. Marshal Cade Ryland watched the little girl, then the woman behind the window. Myra's face had gone still, as if her mind had stopped moving. Her fingers rested on the silver pendant. The faint glow in it pulsed once, then settled. Lily didn't care about the silence. She stepped closer to the counter, lifted her toy rover like it was proof of something important, and repeated in a softer voice, "That's her." The rancher behind her, Jonah Hale, cleared his throat, embarrassed and worried at the same time. "Sorry, Marshal," Jonah said. "She got away from me. She's stubborn." Lily spun toward her father. "I'm not stubborn, I'm right." Jonah rubbed the back of his neck. He looked tired in the way only a single parent could look tired. His shirt had old grease marks from fixing fences and engines. Dust clung to his boots. His eyes were kind but guarded. Cade leaned a little closer. "Why does she think Mara is her mother?" Jonah's mouth opened, then closed again. He didn't seem to have a clean answer. "Her mother passed 2 years ago," he said carefully. "Lily, she still talks about her sometimes, but she hasn't met this woman, not ever." Lily grabbed Jonah's hand, then tugged him toward the holding room door like she was moving cattle. "Come on, you have to open it." Madsen stood up, alarmed. "Absolutely not. She's in holding. She's unclaimed." Cade held up a hand. "Easy." He looked at Lily. "Kid, you can't just claim somebody because you feel like it." Lily's chin lifted. "I'm not just feeling, I saw her." Cade blinked. "Saw her where?" Lily pointed at her own chest. "In my dream, she was standing in the red wind." "She had that shiny thing." Lily pointed toward Mara's pendant through the window. "And she was sad. Then she smiled at me." Jonah sighed like this conversation had happened 100 times about 100 different things. "She's been having dreams since last week," he admitted. "Waking up saying someone is coming. I thought it was just, kid stuff." Myra stood on the other side of the door, listening. Her eyes stayed fixed on Lily, not in confusion now, but in something softer. Like the child's voice had reached a place inside her that everything else could not reach, Cade made a decision. "Madsen, open the door." Madsen's eyes went wide. "Marshal, I'll be right here," Cade said. "If anything goes wrong, it's on me." Madsen hesitated, then unlocked the holding room with shaking fingers and opened the door. The metal squealed. Lily ran in before anyone could stop her. She stopped right in front of Mara and stared up at her face. For a second, Lily didn't speak. She just looked as if matching a picture in her heart with the real thing. Then Lily reached out and took Mara's hand. Mara flinched at the touch, but she didn't pull away. Lily's hand was small and warm. It grounded Mara like a rope tied to something real. "There," Lily whispered, satisfied. "You're here." Mara's voice came out quiet. "Hello," Lily smiled big. "Hi, Mama," Jonah stepped forward quickly. "Lily, no, don't call her that." Lily turned, frustrated. "Why not? She needs a family, and we need help." Jonah's face tightened. That last part hit him harder than he wanted to admit. Cade watched Jonah closely. "What do you mean you need help?" Jonah swallowed. "The ranch it's a lot, I'm trying. But fences break, machines fail, and Lily, she's alone too much when I'm out working. I don't like it." His voice dropped. "And I've had trouble lately." Cade's eyes narrowed. "What kind of trouble?" Jonah hesitated, then forced the truth out. "Someone's been checking my land. Not like normal drifters. Quiet. Like they're looking for something." Last night my warning sensors went off near the North Ridge, and when I rode out I found boot prints and a burned spot in the dirt, like a small engine hovered there. Mara's grip tightened slightly on Lily's hand. Cade noticed. Mara noticed that she had reacted and her eyes flicked away like she was hiding it. Cade kept his voice calm. "You report it." Jonah shook his head. "I don't have proof. And out there people call you paranoid until you're dead." Cade stared at him, then nodded once. "Fair point." Lily tugged Mara's hand again. "Come to our ranch," she said. "Please, you can sleep in my room or the other room. We have an extra room." Jonah quickly corrected, "She can sleep in the guest room." Lily rolled her eyes like Jonah was the child. "That's what I said." Madsen cleared his throat. "Marshal, you cannot just release an unregistered woman to a private ranch." Cade leaned back on his heels. "I can if Jonah signs temporary sponsor papers." Jonah blinked. "Me?" Cade nodded. "You've got land, you've got a registry number, and you're known in town. If you sponsor her for 7 days, she's not transferred. She stays under colony watch, and I keep checking in." Jonah looked from Cade to Mara. He didn't look excited. He looked like a man staring at an open door in a storm, unsure if stepping through would save him or ruin him. Mara spoke before he could refuse. "I don't want to cause trouble," she said quietly. Jonah met her eyes. "You don't look like trouble." Mara gave a small, sad smile. "Trouble doesn't always look like trouble." Cade made his voice firm. "Jonah, if you don't do this, she goes to intake tonight. If she's harmless, they'll still treat her like a file number. If she's someone being hunted, intake might hand her over without asking questions." Jonah's jaw worked. He didn't like authority stations. Most settlers didn't. Too many rules, too many guards, too much power. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Please," Jonah exhaled slowly. 7 days, he said, mostly to himself. Then he looked at Madsen. "I'll sign." Madsen looked offended, but he pulled up the forms. Jonah signed with a stylus, his hand steady even if his thoughts weren't. Cade signed as witness. Myra stepped out of the holding room for the first time since arriving in town. People outside the office windows watched like they were seeing a ghost walk free. Cade escorted them out. Lily skipped ahead, holding her toy Rover and humming, as if the world was suddenly safe. Jonah walked beside Mara. He didn't know what to say, so he started with the simplest thing. "You can call me Jonah," he said. Mara nodded. "Mara," she replied, then added honestly, "I don't know if that's really my name." Jonah glanced at her pendant. "Where'd you get that?" Mara's fingers closed around it. "I don't remember, but it feels like mine." They reached Jonah's transport, a rugged ranch buggy with thick tires made for stone and sand. Jonah lifted Lily into the seat, then offered Mara the other side. Mara climbed in with careful movements, but her body seemed to know the machine. She reached instinctively for a strap, checked a latch, and looked toward the horizon like she was reading distance. Jonah noticed. "You've ridden in these before." Mara frowned. "Maybe." They drove out of town, passing the last buildings and the final fence line. The land opened wide, rolling red plains with patches of gray scrub and jagged black rocks that looked like broken teeth. In the distance, strange tall plants rose like twisted cacti, their tops opening and closing slowly with the wind. Lily talked the entire ride. "We have cattle," she said, "but they're not like earth cows. They have 2 humps and they spit if they're mad. My favorite is Junibug. She likes apples. Daddy says don't feed her too much, but I do anyway." Jonah groaned. Lily giggled. "What? It's true." Mara listened, and something in her expression softened. The words earth and apples sounded normal, but to Mara they felt like pieces of a life she had never had. She found herself wanting to keep listening. As the buggy climbed a ridge, Jonah pointed ahead. "That's the ranch." A cluster of buildings appeared: main house, barn, water tower, solar panels, and a wind turbine that creaked in slow circles. Fence lines stretched outward, fading into the red distance. Mara's chest tightened as they approached, not from fear but from a strange pull like she had been here before in another life. When they stopped, Lily jumped down and ran straight to the house. "I'll show you," she called back. Jonah helped Mara down. "Rules," he said, awkward but serious. "You're welcome here, but I need to know something. If you're running from someone, I have a kid to protect." Mara met his eyes. The wind tugged at her hair. She looked at the ranch, then at Lily in the doorway waving. "I think someone might be looking for me," Mara admitted. "I don't know who, but I don't want them to hurt anyone because of me." Jonah's face hardened, but not at her, at the idea of strangers threatening his home. Cade, still watching from his sandrunner at the edge of the property, spoke up. "That's why I'm here." He nodded toward the horizon. I'll patrol this area every day while she's under your sponsorship. Jonah nodded, grateful but stubborn. I can handle my own ranch. Cade gave a small half-smile. Sure you can, but it doesn't hurt to have eyes. Mara glanced at Cade. Why are you helping? Cade answered simply. Because I don't like bullies and because Lily seems to have chosen you. Lily called again from the doorway. Come inside. I made space on the table for you. Myra looked at the little girl, then at Jonah. Jonah gave a short nod, like he was agreeing to step onto unknown ground. Myra walked toward the house, dust crunching under her boots. Inside, the ranch smelled like warm bread, oil, and sun-dried wood. The kitchen was plain but clean. Lily climbed onto a chair and patted the seat beside her like it was Mara's rightful place. Mara sat down slowly. Lily leaned against her arm as if she had always belonged there. Jonah stood near the counter, watching them both. His expression held worry, confusion, and something else. Hope, maybe, though he didn't want to name it. Outside, unseen by them, a tiny glint moved across the sky, so high it looked like a star. It held position for a moment, then drifted slightly, like an eye adjusting to get a better view. Mara's pendant gave a faint pulse. And far away, beyond the ridge, something quiet and dangerous began to close the distance. The first night at Jonah Hale's ranch felt quiet on the surface, but the air carried a strange tension that none of them could fully explain. The twin moons rose slowly, casting pale silver light across the red plains. Wind brushed through the tall alien grass, making a whispering sound like distant voices. Inside the ranch house, Lily refused to leave Mara's side. She sat close at the kitchen table while Mara held a warm cup of tea Jonah had prepared. The steam curled upward, soft and calming. Myra watched it as if she had not seen something so simple in a long time. You can sleep in the guest room, Jonah said, leaning against the counter. His voice stayed calm, but he studied her carefully. It's small, but it's clean. Thank you, Myra replied quietly. Lily grinned. It has a window. I put a flower there. You'll like it. Myra smiled faintly. It felt natural to smile at Lily, like something inside her knew how to respond to the child's warmth even if her memories stayed locked away. After dinner, Jonah showed her around the ranch. The barn held large two-humped animals called dune cattle, their eyes gentle and curious. Hover saddles hung from hooks on the walls. Machines hummed softly, keeping water flowing and lights running. Myra moved through the space with quiet awareness. She paused beside a broken gate hinge and adjusted it without thinking, tightening a loose bolt with quick, skilled movements. Jonah noticed immediately. You've done this before. Myra blinked, surprised by herself. Maybe my hands just knew what to do. Jonah nodded slowly, filing the information away. Later that night, Mara lay awake in the guest room. The bed felt unfamiliar but safe. Outside, the wind rattled softly against the walls. She stared at the ceiling, her mind restless. A faint pulse came from the pendant resting against her chest. Light flickered behind her eyes. Suddenly she saw flashes, metal corridors, flashing red lights, boots running, voices calling commands she could almost understand. A child crying somewhere far away. A voice in her ear saying, "You are a guardian, protect the vulnerable." Mara gasped and sat upright. The vision vanished as quickly as it came. Her breathing slowed, but unease remained. Outside, something moved across the sky, silent and deliberate. Morning arrived with warm sunlight spilling through the kitchen window. Lily sat at the table drawing pictures with colored pencils. One picture showed 3 figures holding hands under a red sky. "That's you," Lily said, pointing at the tall figure. "And that's me." "And that's Daddy." Mara looked at the drawing. The simple lines made her chest ache in a way she could not explain. Jonah entered carrying a toolbox. "Fence on the west side broke again," he said. "Wind last night." "I can help," Mara said before thinking. Jonah hesitated. "You don't have to." "I want to," she replied. They rode out together on hover mounts that skimmed just above the ground. Mara balanced easily, her body adjusting instinctively to the motion. Jonah noticed again. "You really don't remember anything?" he asked. Mara shook her head slowly. "Only feelings, not facts." They reached the fence line and began repairs. Mara worked quickly, strong and efficient. Jonah found himself trusting her without fully understanding why. As they worked, a faint buzzing sound drifted through the air. Jonah stiffened. "Hear that?" Mara turned toward the sound immediately. Her posture shifted subtly, alert, focused. A small drone hovered high above, black and smooth, watching. Jonah cursed under his breath. "That's not local tech." Myra's heart began to race. A cold certainty slid into her mind, not memory exactly, but recognition. The drone turned slowly, scanning. Then it shot upward and vanished into the sky. Jonah looked at Mara. "You said someone might be looking for you?" Mara nodded, fear rising. "Yes." They returned to the ranch quickly. Cade Rylan arrived shortly after, his sandrunner kicking up dust behind him. He listened to Jonah's report, eyes narrowing. "I saw something in orbit last night," Cade said quietly. "Didn't want to jump to conclusions." "Now I'm thinking I should have." Lily stood nearby, holding Mara's hand tightly. "Bad people?" she asked. Cade softened his voice. "Maybe, but we'll handle it." As the day passed, tension grew. Even the animals seemed restless. Near sunset, the sky darkened suddenly. A low rumble echoed across the plains. Jonah stepped outside, shading his eyes. "That's not thunder." 3 black ships descended from the clouds, silent except for a deep, vibrating hum that rattled the windows. Dust spiraled around the ranch as they landed beyond the fence line. Lily clung to Mara. "Don't go." Mara knelt in front of her. "I won't leave you," she said softly, though uncertainty twisted inside her. Figures stepped out of the ships, tall, armored agents dressed in dark uniforms. Their movements were precise, controlled. Cade moved forward to meet them, one hand resting near his sidearm but not drawing it. "State your business," he called. The lead agent removed his helmet. His expression remained cold and professional. "We are retrieving government property," he said. Cade's jaw tightened. "People aren't property." The agent's eyes shifted toward Mara. "Designation M7, you are ordered to surrender." Mara froze. The words hit her like a shockwave. Images flashed through her mind, training rooms, starships, orders shouted in calm voices. She staggered slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. The agent stepped closer. "You were created for protection operations. You malfunctioned and fled custody." Jonah stepped beside Mara immediately. "She's under my sponsorship. You don't take her without explanation." The agent barely looked at him. "You are interfering with official authority." Cade stepped forward, voice firm. "This is colony land. You want someone, you present legal orders." The agent hesitated briefly, then nodded toward his team. Weapons raised, not loud or aggressive, but enough to make the threat clear. Lily began to cry softly. Mara's heart pounded. Another flash of memory struck her, standing between civilians and danger, blocking attacks, protecting children. Her body moved without thinking. She stepped slightly in front of Lily. The agent noticed. "See, her programming activates naturally." "I'm not programming," Mara whispered. "You are," he said calmly. "You were built to guard. Your attachment to that child is artificial bonding." Mara shook her head fiercely. "No," Jonah's voice hardened. "She stays here." The tension thickened like a storm about to break. Cade glanced at Mara. "You remember anything useful?" Mara closed her eyes briefly. She felt the wind, the ground beneath her feet, Lily's small hand gripping her sleeve. "I remember protecting," she said slowly, "not hurting." The agent sighed as if disappointed. "Then comply peacefully." Instead, Mara stepped back toward the ranch house. "I won't go," she said quietly but firmly. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then one of the agents advanced. Before anyone else could react, a piece of equipment slipped from a crate nearby and began to fall toward Lily. Mara moved faster than thought. She caught it midair, her reflexes impossibly quick. Everyone stared. Even she looked shocked by her own speed. Lily hugged her leg tightly. "See, she's my mama, she protects me." The agent watched carefully. "Proof enough." Cade raised his voice. "Enough, nobody takes anyone tonight. You want this settled, we talk, no force." The agent paused, considering. The ships hovered quietly behind them, engines glowing faintly. Mara felt memories pushing at the edge of her mind, not fully clear yet, but close. She knew one thing with certainty. These people had come for her. And she was no longer willing to run without fighting for the place that had begun to feel like home. The air around Jonah Hale's ranch felt heavy as the dark ships hovered beyond the fence line. Dust swirled slowly under their engines, rising and falling like restless waves. The agents stood in a straight line, calm and patient, as if they believed time itself worked for them. Mara stood between Lily and the strangers, her heart pounding but her posture steady. She did not fully understand who she had been before, but she knew one thing clearly now. She would not let anyone take the child away from safety. Marshal Cade Ryland stepped forward again, boots crunching against the dry earth. "We're done talking about ownership," he said firmly. "She stays unless you show legal authority recognized by this colony." The lead agent watched him without emotion. Our authority is above colony jurisdiction. Maybe where you come from, Cade replied, but not here. Jonah stood beside Mara, arms crossed, his face set in quiet determination. He was not a man who looked for trouble, but he was not afraid of it either when it came to protecting his home. Lily clung tightly to Mara's hand. "Don't let them take you," she whispered. Mara looked down at her, feeling something warm and strong rise inside her chest. It wasn't memory, it wasn't programming, it felt like choice. "I won't leave you," Mara said softly. The lead agent sighed slightly, as if disappointed by stubborn children. "You misunderstand," he said. "Unit M7 is unstable. Without proper supervision, she poses a risk." Mara's jaw tightened. "I am not a unit." The agent ignored her protest. "Her emotional attachments interfere with her intended function." Cade shook his head. "Funny. Around here we call that being human." One of the agents stepped forward, raising a device that emitted a faint blue glow. The air hummed and Mara felt a strange pressure behind her eyes. Suddenly memories burst forward. Metal halls, training exercises. Standing between frightened settlers and danger, voices calling her guardian. Orders given without warmth. Missions completed without rest. Then another memory pushed through, refusing an order, standing in front of a child, saying no. Mara staggered, but Jonah caught her arm. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She nodded slowly. "I remember I was made to protect people, but they wanted me to do something wrong. I refused." The agent lowered the device slightly. "You malfunctioned. Your refusal created risk. You must return for reconditioning." Mara's voice grew stronger. "No, I chose." The wind picked up, lifting strands of her hair. The silver pendant glowed brighter against her chest. Lily stepped forward suddenly, standing beside Mara. "She stays," Lily said in a small but firm voice. Jonah placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "Behind me, kiddo." Cade moved closer as well, positioning himself between the agents and the ranch house. "We're not giving her up," he said. The agents exchanged brief looks. Their movements remained calm, but tension crackled in the air. Finally, the lead agent spoke again. "You leave us no choice." Behind him, one of the ships shifted slightly, engines humming louder. A faint energy field began forming around the landing area. Jonah swore under his breath. "They're getting ready to take her by force." Mara felt fear rise, not for herself, but for the others. "I don't want anyone hurt because of me," she said. Cade glanced at her. "Then help us protect this place." Mara closed her eyes briefly, focusing on the feeling growing inside her, strength mixed with purpose. When she opened them again, her gaze was steady. "Okay." Jonah moved quickly. "We know this land better than they do," he said. "If they push forward, we use the terrain." Cade nodded. "I'll handle negotiations as long as possible. Buy us time." The agents advanced slowly, careful and precise. One step too close to a hidden patch of unstable ground near the fence. Jonah activated a remote switch from his belt. A line of dust charges popped loudly, harmless but startling, throwing up a thick cloud of red dirt that blocked visibility. Cade shouted, "Fall back!" Myra grabbed Lily and guided her toward the house while Jonah moved to secure the barn. The agents reacted quickly, scanning through the dust, but they hesitated enough to give the ranchers an advantage. Mara felt instincts guiding her movements, where to stand, when to move, how to anticipate danger. She helped Cade position equipment to create barriers using farm tools and machinery creatively. "You've done this before," Cade muttered. "I think so," Mara replied. The dust cleared slowly. The agents regrouped but did not immediately attack. The lead agent watched carefully, studying Mara's actions. "You see," he called, "she is a weapon." Mara shook her head. "No, I am a protector." The difference mattered deeply to her. Lily peeked out from behind Jonah. "She's good," she insisted. For a long moment, neither side moved. Then the lead agent's communicator crackled. He listened silently, expression unreadable. After a pause, he raised his hand. The other agents lowered their weapons slightly. "We are receiving new orders," he said. "This situation is no longer a priority." Cade narrowed his eyes. "Convenient timing." The agent ignored the comment. He looked directly at Mara. "You have deviated from your intended path, but you have chosen a new one. For now, we withdraw." The ship's engines brightened. Slowly, they lifted off the ground, rising into the sky like dark shadows fading into the clouds. Dust settled again. Silence returned. Jonah exhaled deeply, tension leaving his shoulders. "Well, that was something." Cade watched the sky carefully until the ships disappeared. They might come back, he warned. Mara nodded. Maybe, but I won't run anymore. Lily ran forward and wrapped her arms around Mara's waist. You stayed. Mara hugged her gently, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Yes, she said softly, I stayed. Later that evening, the ranch felt different, calmer, but changed. The kitchen lights glowed warmly while Jonah cooked dinner. Cade sat at the table, drinking coffee and watching quietly. You're free to go wherever you want now, Cade said eventually. No one here will force you to stay. Mara looked at Lily, who sat beside her drawing another picture, this time showing 4 figures together under a red sky. I want to stay, Mara said. Jonah glanced up from the stove. You're welcome here as long as you want. Mara smiled slightly. Thank you. Outside, the twin moons rose again. The ranch stood peaceful under their light. Days later, the colony officially recognized Mara under Jonah's sponsorship. She helped repair fences, learned the rhythms of ranch life, and slowly built new memories to replace the ones she had lost. Lily called her Mama without hesitation. At first, Mara felt unsure about the word, but over time it began to feel right, not because of programming, but because of choice. One evening, as the sun set over Red Mesa Colony, Cade stood by the fence watching Mara teach Lily how to guide a hover mount safely. Jonah joined him, arms resting on the wood rail. You think they'll come back? Jonah asked quietly. Cade shrugged. Maybe, but she won't face them alone. They watched as Lily laughed and Mara smiled, a real, relaxed smile that had nothing to do with training or duty. Out here on the frontier, family wasn't always something you were born into. Sometimes it was something you chose. And for the first time since waking without memories, Mara felt certain of one thing. She had found a place where she belonged.